What's going on, guys? So in this video I'm going to show you how to deploy the front end and back end of your full stack application, and specifically I'm going to show you how to do that if you have a mono repo set up with Yarn workspaces, but it would work pretty similarly if you don't have Yarn workspaces. It will work if you have two different repos. So the first thing we want to do, if you've been following along with the series, is we want to set up some environment variables. So I've gone ahead and just gotten that started for you. So for example, over here in the server controller, and when we're setting the origin for the core's configuration, instead of just putting a localhost 4000 or 3000, you would put process.env.client URL, because we're going to start doing things in production. And then you would just go in this .env file and then declare that environment variable. And for now, we're going to put localhost 3000, but once we have our site online, we're going to change this to the Netlify URL, because we're going to put our front end in Netlify. And we have to do the same thing on the front end. So in the front end package, just make a .env file and declare the environment variable react_app_server URL. And every environment variable in React needs to start with React app. And then here we just put our URL for our server. And then in our socket.js file, we want to reference that URL, that environment variable. And in our account context, we want to replace basically all the URLs. We want to replace it with the environment variable, along also in the login component and the sign up component. And so after you replaced all those URLs, you also want to declare that the node environment is in production, and go over to our index.js of our backend, and we want to do app.set, just like this. I did app.set trust proxy 1, and all this is going to do is basically say that all the headers or any IP address is going to be getting from a different header than normal. So this is, you need to set this because we're going to be using Nginx to as a reverse proxy. And once you have that set up, let's go in our rate limiter, and we need to reference, when we set our IP variable, we need to reference request.headers and access the X-Forwarded-for header. Okay. And one more thing, on the front end, we're gonna need to go over here to index.js and change browser router to hash router. And then after all of these changes, we can just go ahead and get started deploying our application. So I'm just gonna make this window smaller. And so you can go to netlify.com, and then you could go over here and click add new site. So you click here and you click import an existing project, and then you click on GitHub. And then you would search for the repository of your project. So here it's called full stack WhatsApp clone. So is this one. Okay. And I made a branch called prod, which is where I have all these changes. So let's just go to that branch. And if you want to know how to make a branch, you would just do git checkout-b prod, and then git push origin prod, and then that's how you do that. And so yeah, we're going to deploy our prod branch. And then this is where things get different if you're doing if you have a mono repo set up. So over here in this build command, it depends on really how you have your project set up. If you have just two different repositories, one for front end, one for back end, then this would just be yarn build. But actually for me it's not, because my project, my repository, is this root project, and it has a packages folder with my front end and my back end inside of it. So in that case, you would just make your own command in the scripts of the package JSON, and you can name it whatever you want. I named mine build::client, and it just runs yarn workspace and then the name of the package. So the name of our front end package, which is defined here in the package JSON of that specific package. And then the command that you want to run inside of that package, which is build, which would then run this build command right here. So here you would just do yarn, and then whenever you named your script, I named mine build client. And Netlify does do yarn, so that's not a problem. And then publish directory, that would be basically like when you build a React project in the same project as React is in, it will make a folder called build, and then that will be your built application. So here you just want to specify the directory, and that would be, in my case, since I'm in a yarn workspace, that would be in packages/client/build. And here, this is very important that you don't forget this. Here you can set up environment variables, and you want to match this with the environment variable you have here. And obviously we can change this later on, but for now, just set this up. And I want to see, let me make sure, yeah, I knew I spelled it wrong. So yeah, after you do that, just click on deploy site. And it's gonna go ahead and build it for you, and we can go in site settings and in domain management, and we can change this domain. I'm just gonna make it WhatsApp-clone, like that. It's already taken. Okay, I'm just gonna name it Lester WhatsApp. Okay, and so this URL right here, lesterwhatsapp.netlify.app, we can go in our server package in our environment variables, and we can make that our client URL. And then this would be HTTPS : because Netlify automatically does HTTPS for these type of things. So obviously, if I were to just go to this link, first of all, it's not even built yet, but it's not going to work because they're going to try to, our front end is trying to communicate with this localhost URL, which is not going to work. So let's get started on deploying our backend, which is the juicy part of this video. So let me make this window bigger, and I'm going to go over here to DigitalOcean, and I'm going to create a droplet. Here, I'll just pick Ubuntu basic, $5 a month one, everything default. Okay, here's the important part. You want to choose your SSH keys. Here, I already have 2 SSH keys selected on my account. If there's nothing here, you can click on new SSH key and then put in your SSH key in here. And if you don't have one, you can do SSH keygen, and then you would do cat.ssh/ or your home directory.ssh/id_rsa.pub, and you would just copy and paste that into here. So yeah, but this is not an SSH video, so I'm not going to focus too much on that. So let's say, yeah, you have your SSH keys here, and you can just click and just change the host name actually to WhatsApp clone, and yeah, just create it. So it's actually going to take a second to create itself, but that's good because we have some other things that we need to do. So as you know, Netlify is going to host our website on HTTPS. When we go to it, here it is on HTTPS. But obviously we can't do anything, and we get an error in our console here. When a front end is hosted on HTTPS, it cannot communicate with a backend on HTTP. Well, it could, but then it would take off this lock symbol, or it would give an error in the browser. So that's kind of a pain. And to fix that, we would need to have our backend droplet, our server in our droplet, it would need to be HTTPS. And to do that, we would need a domain. So I just have a domain here in GoDaddy. I got it a while ago. You could have any domain, and it doesn't have to be GoDaddy. It can be Namecheap or whatever. But just look where you can manage your domain. Here it says manage DNS. And so what you want to do is change your name servers. And here I just have to click change and enter my own. And then you would enter ns1.digitalocean.com. ns2.digitalocean.com and ns3. And that's all you need to do. It'll take like 10 minutes to update itself. And so that's all you need to do when you have your domain. And so over here in DigitalOcean, you can go to the networking tab and you go to domains and you just want to register your domain. I already did it here. So you just type it. Mine was usefultech.net. And you would go to it. And so then you would want to register your domain to your droplet. So here you would just put app, which just means like the root domain will direct to this droplet. And then we're going to create an A record saying that. And then we also want to register the www subdomain to the same server. Okay, and that's all we need to do for our DNS. So once we have that, let's just copy the IP address of our droplet. And let's actually SSH into it. So I'm just going to open a terminal here in VS Code. I'm going to do SSH root at, and then I'm going to paste it in there. And it's going to let me write in because I registered my SSH key earlier. So here we're in. And so obviously we need to install Node.js because our application is a Node.js backend. So to do that, I'm going to actually install NVM, which makes it just so much easier to install the version that we need. So just search up NVM, go to the repo, and right here it gives you a script to install it. So you can just copy that and install it just like this. And so what you need to do is go to your actual project or your computer and type in node-v. And you see this version, that's the same one we want to install in our production environment. So I'm going to do nvm install version 16.12.0. Oh, and it's not working because I actually have to restart the terminal. So let me exit and go back in. And then now you can use NVM and you just do NVM install and the version. Then you do NVM use version 16.12.0 and then just test it out by doing node-v. And that means if that works, then that means you're all good. So as you know, our project is using PostgreSQL and Redis. So let's actually install Redis. And to do that, I'm just gonna go over here to this Linode documentation. And they're actually very helpful and they give us some commands that we can do here. So first thing you want to do is apt update to update your list of applications. And so after that, we just want to run this command right here, and it's just going to add the Redis repository into our apt get, and then it's going to let us get the newest version of Redis. And so after that, you just do apt update and apt install Redis server. And we're also going to install, so you can just stick this all in one command, so it doesn't really matter. And then you can do apt install PostgreSQL, just like that. Okay, so it just made me type like capital Y a bunch of times, but after that we want to test out that everything's good. So let's just run redis-cli and exit out of Redis. So Redis is good. And if you type PSQL, you'll get an error. And I explained in my previous videos setting up PostgreSQL with Node.js, I explained in detail why this is. But now I'm just going to go through it quickly for the sake of time. But basically, to fix this, you just run sudo-u postgres. So we're basically going to run a command in the user Postgres. And this will just be create user --interactive. And here you want to make the role, which is the same name as the user that you're logged in SSH as. And in our case is root. In a real, maybe more secure production environment, you would make your own user, give them permissions, a whole thing. That's probably another video, but I want to keep this one short. So I'm just going to stay as root and yes, super user. And so now we just want to create a database called WhatsApp. And then let's connect into it. So we also need to create a database called root. So then we can just run PSQL and then do /c WhatsApp. And then here we want to get our query that we saved previously. So to create our users table, and we can just paste that in here. And so now we just want to do /password and type in the same password that you have over here. Or if you want to change it, just make sure to change it here too. So I'm just going to do Postgres and then /q. One more thing I want to install is NginX. So apt install NginX. Okay, so now that we have all of our dependencies to continue, I actually want to get our workspace, our repo, into our remote server. But to do that, first of all, we need yarn. So I'm just going to do npm i-g yarn. So now I'm going to go over here to my GitHub, and I'm going to open this up and click on code, and it gives me a little link here, and I can use that to do git clone, paste in that link, and then -b to specify that we want to clone a specific branch, and then the prod branch. And then you can also rename the folder, and I'll just rename it to WhatsApp, and then it's going to do that. And then when we do ls, you see we have a file called WhatsApp, so we can go into that. And here we have our mono-repo, and let's just install everything and just run yarn. Okay, so that just finished, and I made this window thing a little bigger. Hopefully that helps you so you can read better. But now that we have our project, let's go into our backend repo or package like that. And then I'm gonna run yard just to be safe. And so now we want to get this .env file into our remote server. So I'm just gonna do vim, you can use nano.env. I'm just gonna copy all this over. And yeah, but our database user on our remote server is root. So we just want to change that. We set the password, I'm pretty sure we did. If you were running this database on a different server, obviously you would change all of this, but since our database is on the same server as our backend API, we're just going to keep it all like this. And so now we want to configure Nginx so that when we go to our website right here, our IP address of our droplet on port 80, we're taken over to our Node.js application, which runs on port 4000. And it's also going to be useful for HTTPS. So we need Nginx. So I'm going to open in Vim the /etc/nginx/sites enabled/default. And so in here, you're just going to want to go down here to where it says server name. And here you would put the domain name that you registered in DigitalOcean. So here we would put, mine was usefultech.net and www.usefultech.net. Here you just put any domain that you want to be, that when you get a request to this domain, it's sent over to the Node.js application. So here we can get rid of this stuff, and you want to go here where it says location, and we're going to set up a couple of things. So obviously, you don't have to memorize these. I just have them written down so I don't spell them wrong. But these are like things that have been tested. They work great. I'm not an expert at Nginx, but I've used it. So yeah, and I might learn some of this stuff better so I can make some more videos about it. But yeah, you just do this and you'll get it right. I'll have it in the description so you can just copy paste it. So now we have this, we can really just, like, let me just show you real quick. If I get the IP of this droplet and stick it in my browser, obviously it says not safe because it's HTTP and not HTTPS, but it's my thing, so I trust it. Then you see we got Nginx all set up right here, but that's not what we wanted. So now we're gonna set up HTTPS. So To do that, we're going to use Certbot. And it's like this bot thing that they made in Python, and it just uses Let's Encrypt to give you an HTTPS certificate, and you can it supports a lot of things. It supports Apache, HA-proxy. In this case, we're using Nginx on Ubuntu, but this stuff is really good. Like these guys that made this, they're really good. So all you want to do is basically do these commands. You just want to install Certbot as a snap pack. If you don't have snap, even though most Ubuntu systems have snap by default, you can install snap. But DigitalOcean Ubuntu has snap pack, so we can just run this command right here and install Certbot. And then they say here to do a symlink to make sure that it can be run no matter what. So yeah, you just want to do that. And then simply just run over here certbot --nginx, and just like that you get HTTPS. Super easy. Did I press enter? Oh yeah, it just took a while. Let me try to copy these guys because I think I spelled it wrong. It says enter email address, so you just put any email. Obviously it says here it's only for emergencies, so don't worry about it. It's only for emergencies. And then here, agree to the terms and service. And would you be willing to share your email? No, I don't want to share that. And which names would you like to activate? Leave blank to select all options. So if you just press enter, you get a certificate for both your domain and also www.your domain. So the subdomain included. So just press enter here. It went in our Nginx file and it just configured all the stuff for us, so we don't have to. So now when we go back and get this IP and stick it in our browser. Oh yeah, sorry. So when we go to our domain that we just registered, so usefultech.net for me, there is HTTPS. So yeah, everything's working. So now all we gotta do is turn on our Node.js application, and that's pretty much it. So before we do that, we want to go over here to Netlify, back to our front end, and remember about that environment variable we talked about. It's time to change it. So go over here to build and deploy, and I think it's in this, no, it's over here, yeah. So all you gotta do is change this value right here to HTTPS and your domain name, and that's the domain of your backend. And after that, we want to rebuild our application. So I always forget where it is to force a build, but I'm gonna look for it real quick. Oh yeah, over here in the deploys tab, you just go over here to trigger deploy and deploy it, and it's gonna rebuild the whole thing with the new environment variable set up. So while it's doing that, we can go back to our terminal, to our server, and install a package called PM2. So npm I global PM2, and it's just gonna help us run our Node.js application in the background, but not just in the background, because you can do that with jobs, but it also gives you a bunch of like juicy information, like how much memory it's using, a bunch of stuff that you would have to pretty much work for otherwise. So it just makes it really easy. Okay, then we would just run PM2 start on our index.js. And there we go. Now everything should be working. So I'm gonna do PM2 logs 0, and it's just gonna show us the server logs. And here says the site is live, so we can just go to it. So let me check the front end console. No errors. And let me log in with an account that doesn't exist yet. There we go. We get a good response from the backend, and let's sign up, make an account right here. Okay, and I think I have an idea why this happened. So when we ran Certbot and when we changed our Nginx configuration, we actually forgot to restart Nginx. So here we just do service Nginx restart. So it can actually restart with a new configuration. And so let's try this again. Let me log in because it actually created the account, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so in the Nginx configuration, I accidentally kept the proxy pass at the top. Just want to make sure that the proxy pass is all the way at the bottom before the redirect. So then that way all these setters are hit before the connection is passed over. So yeah, now we have this working. I'm gonna give you a little test here. Everything's working. Let's try to add ourselves as a friend. We got a response from the server. Let's try to add a friend. There are no friends because we're the only person in this application. And I'm gonna make a new account. So let me just copy this URL here. And I'm gonna create an account called Hello World. And so okay, so I ended up getting an error, and that's because I forgot another thing. Over here, make sure you have this header called X-NginX-Proxy set to true, and this one called X-Forwarded-Proto, which stands for protocol set to scheme. Okay, and if you have all those headers, then everything should be working. And see, we're logged in on two different browsers. So I'm gonna add here Lester as a friend, and here I'm gonna have Hello World, which is another account, Hello World 2. So I'm gonna text, and I'm gonna send one back. So yeah, I'm pretty much texting myself. And you probably noticed that the user Hello World was offline, but their thing was still showing as green. And to fix that, all I did was change this. So here I was just checking if friend.connected is undefined, or is it true or false. But the problem with this is that this is checking if friend.connected is a falsy value. So something like an empty string, null, undefined, any of those things. And the thing is that when friend.connected is false, but a string that says false, this actually comes out to true. So then it prints out, it shows the circle as green. So to fix that, you can just literally just append friend.connected to a string, and then it will convert it to a string. And don't forget to make sure that you're checking that this is equal to the string true. And so I just did that, and then I added that, and I committed it to my project. And I did git push origin prod, and then it just did continuous deployment to Netlify. And so anytime you would make a change to your backend code, you would have to go back into SSH. You would have to do sorry about that was me debugging. You would have to do git pull and then rerun your server. But to do git pull, you would need an SSH key. So you would need to go to your GitHub account, and you would need to add a new SSH key, and you could find instructions how to do that by clicking on this link right here. And so this helps you, you do generating a new SSH key, and it helps you out. So yeah, that's basically it. We just deployed this full stack application to DigitalOcean and Netlify, and anyone can use this website. So in the next video, I'm gonna show you how to do this even better using Doku. It's like a Heroku clone if you've ever used Heroku. So instead of you having to go back into your server every time and doing git pull and then rerunning the program, it lets you do what I just did with Netlify and it's called continuous deployment. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.